Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Greatly appreciate it. May we bow in an attitude of prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning and say good morning. Thank you for allowing us to serve others. Lord, may we do so with integrity and dignity and honesty and just, Lord, be concerned about our citizens of all of Washington County, including all of the municipalities. Lord, just direct us and guide us. May we honor you and please you in all that we do and say. And I think this morning we need to just also pray for our country and for situations around the world. Lord, intervene. We ask that you would just guide and direct many of these situations and the tension and turmoil that's about us. Lead, guide, and direct us, I pray in thy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good morning again, and at this point I'll ask for review and approval of the minutes of July 16th.
I abstain.
You were here.
That's the 16th. Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay, 4-0. You're voting Jeff.
You said, correct, for the record, I was here.
Yes, Derek.
And I'm for.
Okay, very good. Okay, Commissioners' reports and comments. Commissioner Klein, you want to go first today?
Yeah, just want to thank everybody for all the thoughts and prayers during my recent surgery underneath my eye. Thank you for all those thoughts. I did stop up at the Clear Spring Carnival community room yesterday. They're having Monday through Friday a lunch from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to support the fire company, homemade soups and sandwiches. I strongly urge anyone listening or in the audience today, if you can make it up there, please do that. And yesterday I was at Meritus Health for the opening of their new facility out at the Valley Mall. It's full of sports fitness area, and they're also being urgent care. Once again, Meritus out there providing services to our community. And that concludes my report.
Good. Thank you. Commissioner Wagner?
Hey, good morning. I was out of town there for a while, but I did manage to take some tours. I also attended the Meritus Sports Medicine Therapy. It's in the old Sears end of the mall. It's very nice, very huge, and I thank Meritus for keep expanding in our community and offer the services of everybody's been in urgent care and how bad it is waiting. Just keep it moving to get more medical available to the community. Remind everybody tonight's National Night Out. I wanted to thank Donna Anders for all the years of service. She retired. I think she's not officially retired yet. Maybe in the next few days. I think it was 30-some years, but thank her. I counted, there's like 11 retirements coming up. So a lot of experience leaving. So, you know, we'll be struggling and trying to get some good experience to replace these people. I don't think I reported on this, but attended the Ag Expo market sale. Was able to buy some rabbits as usual and some parts of steers. So kudos to the 4-H FFA kids who raised those animals. And I hope they made a lot of money on that evening. It was well attended and it sounded like things were going for a pretty good price. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kiefer?
Yeah, just one thing we'd like to remind our citizens and even our friends and neighbors to the north and south in Pennsylvania and West Virginia that starting on Sunday, a full week from August 11th to the 17th is tax-free day on clothes in Maryland, clothing and footwear up to $100 and backpacks up to $40. So in this economy, any little savings is certainly a big help. And things are a little tough right now, as you alluded to, Commissioner Barr. And so tax-free week in Maryland on clothes and backpacks all next week. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Harvey?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, President Barr. I just bring everyone's attention, if they haven't looked at it, to taking a look at Senator Paul Quarterman's letter about problems in the city of Hagerstown dealing with crime and other issues there and his concerns about that. and I'll be very brief. I just say that I hope that the city takes it seriously, acknowledges that there are some concerns, that the public has concerns, and that they will work hard to rebuild one aspect of this, the police force, which has decreased in size considerably over the years. They're underpaid. Their benefits also. They're substantially underpaid, actually, and that's why they have a problem in recruitment and retention. You can't have security and improve the perception of security unless you have, good community policing and presence. And I hope the city acknowledges that there is a problem there and will work with us and others to try and address the crime and other underlying issues there. But first and foremost, you have to build the police force back up to being a quality, competent, and large enough force to deal with it. And there's more to say on this issue in the forward, but I look forward to working with the city leaders. And I know our staff is, and I know Sheriff Brian Albert has already been engaged, as has our county administrator, based upon, communications that, have already taken place, that, work is being done to try and help where possible. Okay. So with that, I'm looking forward to seeing what solutions they come up with and seeing where we can help. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. For me, we often talk about economic development, and we think about the folks down in Florida and Georgia with the hurricane storm coming through. It has left local citizens stranded in Florida with the Allegiant flights from Sanford to Hagerstown. They're only typically on Wednesdays and Fridays and Mondays, so yesterday's flight was canceled back to Hagerstown, so there was people stuck traveling both directions, my family included. So we often think that the storms happen somewhere else, but it's global, and it affects everyone. It affects the economic development of our area likewise with the cancellation of those flights. So keep that in mind and prayers for them. Last Wednesday, I spent the day in Annapolis, was at the MACO office, but more importantly, I was at the governor's reception room for service and volunteerism. And Governor Moore is very strong. The Moore-Miller administration is very strong on helping the communities across the state of Maryland, engaging particularly young people to get involved, to give a life of service and volunteerism. Try to rebuild that in the younger generations, to reestablish the thoughts of helping others around them, being aware and cognizant of others' needs first and foremost. And again, I try to participate in every one of those forums and opportunities to share across the state. So we hats off to the Moore-Miller administration and their efforts in service and volunteerism. With that, upcoming events, we have tonight is, I think it's already been mentioned, is National Night Out. There's multiple events around the county and various municipalities. We ask everyone to, there again, be aware of their surroundings and the folks around them. And it's a night out to enjoy, fellowship, have fun, but please, please be safe. Next item is grand opening of Hub City Parking Garage. That is tomorrow, August 7th, 5:30 p.m., and that's over at 50 West Antietam Street. Paramedic Class 23-02 graduation is this Thursday, August the 8th at 6 p.m., Public Safety Training Center. And last on my list is Eagle Scout ceremony for Caden Devens, and that is Sunday, August the 11th at 2024 at 4 p.m., Church of Christ, Whitehall Road. And I think that's about it for upcoming events. So with that, we'll move into staff comments, and I'm going to ask Dave Hayes to come forward first. And he got some exciting news for us today, Dave, new ambulances. Fantastic.
Good morning, Commissioners. David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services. Just wanted to come before you here today to announce the arrival of the 3 reserve ambulances that were funded out of CIP reserves a few years back. We're anticipating delivery of the engines. There's 3 additional engines coming, going to be later this fall. But the ambulances are out back here. They're sitting here. They represent a new color scheme for the division, which really switches over to a predominantly white with a red baseline stripe. That represents just north of $1 million investment for those 3 ambulances. And to give you the cost of capital and the increasing, when we purchased those, they started in at about $287,000, and we ended up being just over $300,000 by the time we got them equipped and had to encumber the cost in the hardware that goes inside of them, so the cots, the monitors, those types of things. But I want to take a couple seconds here to also highlight some of the other things that aren't out back here that were received in the last 12 months. We took delivery of 4 rescue boats. We updated the entire county rescue boat fleet and actually expanded that service capability, and that's been championed by several commissioners. That's just about a $200,000 investment. Again, we talked about the reserve engines. They're a $2.245 million investment. You have to be delivered late this year. And then last year, out of surplus money, you earmarked about $300,000 to provide power lift stretchers to the volunteer corporation ambulances that were not already equipped with those. And they produce, having been in this business about 41 years and are back to prove it. And I know Randy Leatherman sitting behind me would state the same, that those power lift stretchers and the technology they bring forward are going to increase the work-life balance for our career staff later in their lives, because their backs will not pay that price for that. But most importantly, those ambulances and the engines that are yet to come will serve to help departments throughout the county reduce their fiscal footprint through their capital assets, where they don't need a second ambulance or a third ambulance. They can borrow the county's reserve fleet. And I want to identify the significance of them being 3 new ambulances, and they're identical. So when you're talking about the risk management side of things, a driver or an operator that might be a volunteer that maybe doesn't drive an ambulance or a fire truck often, if they get a different vehicle that they've not driven, there's a risk management side of that there. But in this case, they're identical with the exception of a VIN number. So kudos to the commissioners and ultimately to the citizens that help fund these projects. So we appreciate it. The volunteers appreciate that. They've all been designed to fit in the smallest of fire and EMS houses. So hopefully when they all deliver, we'll be able to meet that. But we appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Dave, what's the timeline on the engines?
October, November. They are actually on production now, and they tell us about 45 days from the time that they actually get the sheet metal cut. So, but as with anything, I mean, we're expecting delays, so we're hopeful. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the Director of Public Works, Andrew Eshelman.
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Eshelman, Director of Public Works. I'm here before you this morning to take some time to introduce our new Director of Transit, Anthony Napoli. Excited to have Anthony join us from Somerset County, New Jersey. So hopefully we can welcome him this morning. I'll give a few moments for him to share a little bit about himself.
Nice to meet you, Commissioners. I'm from New Jersey. I worked in transit for about 12, 13 years now at all different types of aspects of the transit industry. So it's really nice to meet you guys. I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. County Administrator Michelle Gordon.
Yes, Michelle Gordon, County Administrator. I did attend the evening meeting in Hancock. I'd like to thank Mayor Roland Lanehart for welcoming us. It was really a good meeting. We had great dialogue, and it's really nice to get out into each of the towns to discuss
the things that are important to them. Did meet with the Washington County Community Coalition. We are preparing for potential legislative items for the upcoming session. So I just want to make sure that our commissioners are thinking about potential legislative items for the upcoming session that'll start here this fall, and make sure that our directors are also thinking about potential legislative items. I also attended the Customer Appreciation Day. We had a really good turnout. I'd like to thank our staff for coordinating that event. Also attended the retirement celebration for Donna Anders. She is one of our employees in Budget and Finance who's scheduled to retire at the end of the month. She has 38 years of service, and I'd like to congratulate her on the next chapter of her life and thank her for her dedicated service. I attended the Greater Hagerstown Committee's annual membership picnic at Meredith Stadium. National Night Out, as mentioned previously, is tonight. We will have our emergency management staff at the Hancock event this year, and then I believe our sheriff's office will be at the Williamsport event. Just to piggyback on some things that Commissioner Harvey mentioned, I also wanted to indicate that Sheriff Albert has worked with Hagerstown Police Department to conduct traffic enforcement on the main routes within the city of Hagerstown from 4 p.m. to midnight based on a request from them. He's planning to do that through August the 9th, and he's hoping that that will help provide a visible sheriff's presence within the city. He is not going to do that at the expense of or neglecting any calls for service for residents inside of the county. He also helped facilitate a meeting between Hagerstown Police Department and Maryland State Police Department. Our next meeting is next week on August the 13th, and that's everything that I have.
Okay, thank you. Next up is citizens' participation. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment about an issue or issues of county practices and interest. This is not an interactive dialogue or question and answer session. It is solely a time to hear citizens' comments. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes or less. So with that, I think we have a few folks here this morning that would like to come forward. First row, whoever wants to come first. If you'll give us your name and address for the record, we'd appreciate it.
My name is Taj Smith, and my address is 1358 Salem Avenue, Hagerstown, Maryland. Good morning.
Good morning.
As the president of the Washington County NAACP, I would like to encourage the county commissioners to attend the Walking in Their Shoes community walk hosted by Salem Avenue Elementary School on August 15th at 4 p.m. This event aims to bring awareness to the challenges that students living in the walking zone face each day. Salem Avenue Elementary is a Title I school, which means that most of the students are from low-income families and do not have access to transportation. Approximately 208 students at Salem Avenue Elementary live in the target zone for the walk, yet nearly double that number do not receive transportation from Washington County Public Schools. Students living in the walking zone have higher rates of absenteeism than students who receive transportation. Last year's chronic absenteeism rate for the school was 38%. When students miss school, they miss valuable learning opportunities, which can have lasting negative effects. Recently, many of you, along with other elected officials, have commented on the safety, crime, and substance abuse concerns in our communities. It is imperative to consider how we are asking children to navigate these environments daily. Many of these students walk to school without an adult because their parents are working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. While many of us have walked to school without issue, the reality students face today is different. We have more working single-parent households and limited affordable childcare options. Sex trafficking is more prevalent. Some students come from homes affected by substance abuse. We also have an increasing number of homeless students in our county. We understand that issues like poverty, crime, and substance abuse are complex and won't be solved overnight. However, there is something that you can do now to help protect our children. We urge you to increase funding to provide Washington County Public Schools so that alternative transportation options that ensure student safety and well-being can be considered. Your presence at the Walking in Their Shoes event would signal your commitment to understanding and addressing these challenges. It is an opportunity to experience firsthand the environment and challenges that our children face. Ask yourself, how would you feel if it was your child or grandchild who had to make that walk each day? This is not just an invitation to attend a walk. It is a chance to connect with the community that you serve in a profound way. Your participation can lead to informed decisions that directly impact the lives of your constituents. With your support, we can find solutions that prioritize the safety and education of our children. Thank you for considering this invitation, and I hope to see you there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can we get a calendar invite sent to us?
Yes, we'll get that on the calendar.
I'll be at MACO next week.
Okay, but I'll be here. Just get a calendar invite. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Bianca, and for the record, my address is Bianca Pierre. Address is 412 West Franklin Street in Hagerstown, Maryland. So I've come here today as a parent who resides in the walking zone, and I'm part of the 10% in that area that lives east of West Side Avenue. I want to preface this with what everyone might be thinking. When we were in school, we walked a mile, maybe more. But with my experience with my parents, they came here to give me a better life. So we do so that our children don't have to. So if anybody is thinking that way, I just want to encourage you to see this from the other side, which is the parents' side. I think often we get blamed for issues like absenteeism. But from my own experience, I was a college student, pulling myself up by my bootstraps, going to work and school at the same time, and really finding it difficult to get my daughter to and from school. So the lack of transportation isn't just impacting those that are below the poverty level. Some of us are right there above it and have very difficult times finding resources to assist our children because we are right above that level. So I just want to open that up also, because we also see Title I schools and think everybody is below that level, but some folks are working class, and it makes it very difficult for us to provide the best for our students. The community, including the county and city elected officials, have recently raised concerns about public drug usage and increased gun violence. And we share those same concerns and want to bring awareness not only to how limitations of transportation has impacted the higher absenteeism rates among students who walk to school compared to those who are provided transportation. We also want to consider how the concerns of drugs and crime can impact the children who are walking in these areas. Bester, South High, and Salem Avenue have come together to discuss these issues and have individually coordinated walks to bring awareness. And our intention is not to separate the city schools from the county schools, but to collaborate with them to understand how this is impacting the county as well. And since members of this board have acknowledged their concern, we're enlisting your help to bring awareness for our children. The community walk again is happening on August 15th at 4 p.m., and we invite everyone to participate in this important event. If you want more information, you can visit the Salem Avenue Elementary Facebook page, and there will be a flyer, or there has been a flyer posted there, and we would appreciate if you could repost it, and even if you're not able to attend, let people that you know, parents, students, community members, so that they can support the advisory committee and what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Porter, and evidently I reside in the nightmares of Jeff Klein. 2 Thursdays ago, I contacted Mr. Klein in the evening after he was done getting his story straight with Barry Levy about tips regarding corruption of Jeff Klein. I told him I was going to the FBI with the tips because I couldn't handle the sheer volume. I asked for comment. I also asked him to make sure that my records would be produced in accordance with the Maryland Public Information Act and not obfuscated or impeded by the county attorney's office. That doesn't appear to be going so well. Apparently the list of attorneys that my tax dollars are going to fund is going to be redacted, and you guys are going to black out the names of the ambulance chasers that are taking my money to defend corrupt politicians like Jeff Klein. I would ask that anyone that watches any of my interactions or is on YouTube to please Go to www.fbi.gov to submit political corruption tips in regards to Washington County government, more specifically, simply Jeff Klein. When you submit a tip or upload documents to the FBI, this is what will appear on your screen. I am not an investigatory law enforcement agency. I don't have any ability to help you. If you want to tell me about corruption at the hands of Jeff Klein, payoffs from Paul Crampton Builders, failure to disclose gifts on your annual forms, that's all fine and dandy, but it needs to go to the FBI, or like I did, you need to turn it over to the Office of State Prosecutor. They go after bribery pretty hard. Essentially, the county attorney uses outside counsel Kevin Karpinski. Kevin Karpinski also represents the town of Keedysville. The town of Keedysville did some dirty and illegal things. They hid 3,000 emails on a U.S. Department of Transportation server over a 6-month period of time, according to their general counsel. That matter has been referred to the Office of Inspector General. I've also contacted David Trone's office to see if he could help make sure that the investigation is expedited. Essentially, Kevin Karpinski causes problems with the town of Keedysville, gives them bad legal advice. They get into trouble. They drag Washington County into it and the Washington County Attorney's Office into it. And Kevin Karpinski, for some reason, doesn't see a conflict, neither does the county, in representing the county and billing the county to help get them and extricate them from the crap caused by Ken Lord in the town of Keedysville. To give you just a simple example of what's going on here, I was serving a subpoena for Ken Lord, the mayor of Keedysville, to appear and give testimony in regards to a Maryland PIA lawsuit in the Circuit Court of Maryland for Washington County. And his wife, who, these guys, there's a lawsuit about them maliciously prosecuting people and making false criminal accusations against them. His wife actually tried to have me arrested while serving a subpoena for trespassing. She apparently doesn't know the legal and statutory definition of trespassing. She tried to have me arrested for harassment, and because I informed her that I was also going to go to the FBI in regards to her husband, while she was answering her husband's cell phone because he wouldn't answer, she then tried to lie and say I impersonated an FBI agent, and that didn't work either. So the sheriff's deputy that responded was smart enough not to fall for any of her lies. But that is just one example of how desperate to hide the dirt some of these politicians like Jeff Klein and Ken Lord actually are, that they will try to arrest a guy who's trying to serve a subpoena. I did successfully serve that subpoena. It took 3 deputies responding to her house in order to serve the subpoena, while Ken Lord, evidently, based on what I observed, was hiding in his den looking out at me, pretending not to be home. That's the sort of corruption that the citizens don't want to be paying for. My taxes have gone up substantially, double for my property taxes. I know that's the fault of State Department of Assessments and Taxation, but you guys benefit from this increase in taxes. You guys are paying a county attorney a decent amount of money, and a county attorney appears at this point in time to be trying to maximize the amount of money that I can be charged for my PIA request, and then maximize the amount of redactions and withholdings that may allow me and others to correctly oversee the operation of the government. You guys are supposed to be transparent. You're not. You guys are destroying documents, or at least the former county attorney Kirk Downey is accused of destroying documents, hiding documents, wording things in such a way to avoid the public from knowing about documents. You hit a cybersecurity breach for what, a year before you finally came out with it? Kirk Downey's office had been bombarded with requests from local journalists. I just call him the local Walter Cronkite, but there's another name for him. And every single time he requested information about the cyber hack, you guys didn't want to give it. Apparently, you're not telling how much was paid. Apparently, you guys did not want the FBI coming in to aid you in your little issue you had when you got hacked. But long story short, the public needs its public records. The Maryland Public Information Act is supposed to allow transparency in government. It is currently being obfuscated by Kevin Karpinski, consulting with our county attorney. The new one, I don't know how far into it he's going to be getting, but basically, you guys aren't producing documents, you're not providing transparency, and so I did what any pissed off citizen would do when they start getting frustrated and start getting the runaround, don't get documents, and start getting stonewalled and start getting a whole bunch of tips about corruption regarding Paul Crampton builders, different developments, different things, you know, where you live, how much you pay in rent, subsidized stuff, failure to disclose gifts. All that stuff is not something I can handle, so I turned it over to the FBI, the Office of the State Prosecutor. Some of it is at the Office of Inspector General. I did give a statement to the Office of Inspector General in regards to what I know. I did also contact IRS CID division in regards to politicians taking kickbacks and subsidies from builders and then not reporting it on their income taxes. So those guys can look up your butt with a microscope. I can't do any of that stuff. I can't even find out how much I as a taxpayer am paying attorneys or what attorneys are being paid. So right now I'm currently being denied or at least stalled and getting redacted copies of invoices for attorney's fees. So if you guys are using attorneys to try and figure out ways to keep stuff away from the public and to keep them from discovering stuff, that's the opposite of a transparent government. I don't like government corruption. I dealt with WCPS, and let me explain to you how much better Aaron Anderson is. They're giving me airline boarding passes. They're giving me invoices, not redacted. They're actually going so far as to give me license plate numbers of Board of Ed members. But when I come to the county attorney's office to find out how much of my money is going to which ambulance chaser, I can't even find out the name of which ambulance chaser is bilking my county out of my tax dollars. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Any other citizens' participation?
Yes, sir. So I just want to state for the record, Levi Trumbull speaking, and justice for Justin Holder. I know you guys know very well who that is because y'all are being sued by this individual. And it's very clear that you guys have a major problem here in Washington County with controlling your departments and having them turn over records that should be released. So I'm going to ask a question and then I'm going to make a statement. So how much of the Washington County taxpayers' money is going to be spent, these people in the audience, how much are they going to pay for lawyers to represent you guys throughout all of these different civil litigations you guys are involved in because you will not produce what are otherwise very simple records? So the statement is that if you're a taxpayer here in Washington County, your money, you know, I don't know where you guys think your money is going, but I can tell you where it's going to go. It's going to go to pay Justin Holder's attorney's fees, if he has any. I imagine he's going to have a lot. He's got Adam Gravel and the very fine people who work for that law firm. And it's going to be a disgrace. That's where your money is going to pay attorney's fees and to pay for all their attorneys as it relates to very costly and very vast civil litigation that these guys are going to go through. Lawsuit after lawsuit. Turn the records over. We know that this is a big cover-up, big conspiracy type situation. The gig's up. You guys have basically, what you've done to Justin Holder is absolutely ridiculous with the criminal charges, trying to say that his own property was not his property when it clearly was because you don't want him doing certain zoning things that he's approved to do. So here's the thing. I have his actual complaint right here in front of me, and let's just take some of it, what he's basically uncovered. Mr. Holder first filed his Maryland Public Information request to the Maryland Department of Natural Resources to the county in the spring of 2020 initially. That's when he did it. Since the spring of 2020, Mr. Holder has been vigilantly pursuing his rights under MPIA to inspect public records in the custody of the Maryland Department of Natural Resources and the county with the least cost and delay as possible. Mr. Holder filed suit against the county and Kirk Downey, that's the attorney here in Washington, on March 15, 2021, one of your guys' many lawsuits up here, resulting in the release of key documents, including what was described as Brady-type exculpatory evidence. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's basically evidence that proves that they're engaged in criminal conduct and unlawful conduct, to say at the very least. And testimony further adduced that the county had, quote, double-deleted criminal evidence. Mr. Holder filed suit against the Maryland Department of Natural Resources in September 2022, and that suit directly resulted in the release of hundreds of key documents, not all of them as I understand, including Brady-type records that would not have been released without Mr. Holder going through the hardship of having to file suits. Over the past 3 years, Mr. Holder has made a multitude of Maryland public information requests to the county and MDNR in order to shed light on the public controversy surrounding environmental matters, the abandoned branch of the Washington County Railroad, and a quid pro quo pay-to-play scheme in and around the town of Keedysville, Maryland. You all know about that very well. After dozens of MPIA requests to the county, town of Keedysville, and the Maryland Department of Environment regarding water and sewer loans, grants, agreements, and policies, Mr. Holder was able to proffer the following indisputable material facts to the town, county, and MDE on November 14th. So based on that limited document, the limited documents he did get that you guys put him essentially through hell to receive, this is some of what he turned up. This is key. The Washington County government has not performed a triennial review of the water sewer plan in over a decade. That's required by Maryland Annotated Code 9503B. You guys have not done that. Number two, the Washington County government lacks a water and sewer plan that has been approved in the last decade and is as required, again, by Maryland Annotated Code 9503A. At least 6 existing properties in the 401 Keedysville-Sharpsburg Sanitary District are either discharging raw sewage directly into the waters of the United States or operating on-site disposal in the SI existing sewer area over what has now been designated, quote, a wellhead protection for the Boonesboro-Keedysville water municipal system, and that the U.S. EPA 201 construction grants paid over $15 million to install and complete sewer systems in the town of Keedysville in 1988, and 6 properties referenced are all located in the SI existing sewer service area that is represented to discharge through the Antietam WWT in accordance with NPDES permit number, so on and so forth. Now, again, I'm not even going to read them all because I know that I'm out of time at this point. But the bottom, oh, and by the way, Director of Washington County Planning, Jill Baker, falsely stated that she would review the inconsistency with the 2009 water sewer plan prior to submitting a new comprehensive plan for approval. Yeah, same old situation. So I understand that there's going to be other people filing Maryland Public Information requests. I guess you already have. You guys need to stop playing around with the Maryland Public Information requests. And that's, you know what, you're going to pay for it. Justin Holder, he's going to come out on top of this situation. You guys all know it. The people of Washington County, Maryland, they deserve better. They shouldn't have to have all their money go to lawyers to pay nonsensical litigation that shouldn't have to be brought in the first place, and then further probably are going to get sanctioned in the long run. So I'm not a Washington County taxpayer, but good luck to those of you who are.
Thank you. Anyone else, citizens participation?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Ray Tucker. You can find me at 626 Washington Avenue as I am the Director of Development at Girls, Inc. In 2022, Girls, Inc. was able to provide morning transportation to the students of Salem Elementary School. I personally was able to pick these kids up, meet their faces, see their struggles, and I beg of you to please remove one obstacle that is preventing the education of our youngest students and our next generation of leaders in this community. They deserve the chance. There are so many different obstacles that these kids are going to face, and coming off of COVID-19 pandemic, their education has already been affected. And so I am asking you to please attend the August 15th walk so that you can see these struggles that these little 5-year-olds with their tiny little legs walking in snow, in heat, in rain. It is not acceptable for our Washington County government to allow this to continue to happen, because these kids deserve an education. They're some of the greatest kids, and so I beg of you to please consider their need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tugger.
Good morning.
Morning, Pastor.
I am Les McIntosh. I reside at 18806 Fountain Fountain Terrace here in Hagerstown. I come here as well as a concerned citizen here to stand with the advisory councils of those at Salem Avenue and the families, and some of those families I am attached to as some of my congregants as parents and as children. And I stand here today with them who have voiced their concerns around the safety, the lack of transportation options, walking distance, the effect of weather, as she stated, walking to school, and child care factors as well. I hope this will bring not only awareness, but also a plan of resolution towards problem solving and finding solutions for our children who have, and these families have been affected tremendously. Just as some stats, the students living in that walking zone has a higher chronic absenteeism, which is 10% in the area east of West Side Avenue compared to other busing zones. Students who miss school are unable to access their education and also often fail behind in their academics. So again, I'm here asking you to attend the Salem Avenue Elementary is hosting a community walk August 15th at 4 p.m. This walk is to help bring awareness around the challenges and students and families facing living in the walking zone. And I hope you all can be present, and I pray that we can begin to work progressively and respond to what's been asked before we have to react to what has happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Other citizens' participation this morning?
Good morning. My name is Tom Thorson, and I live on Ideal Circle in Washington County. Today, I speak as a private citizen, not as a spokesman for the Advisory Council of the Commission on Aging. For months, I've attended every public advisory council meeting, only to witness the board president and the CEO dominate the discussions, neglecting the true operations of the Commission on Aging. At one meeting, the board president even discouraged seconding a motion to explore cost reductions and address the Meals on Wheels backlog. The Advisory Council has become a mere rubber stamp swayed by the board president and the CEO. This organization urgently needs a strong, independent voice on the council to ask the tough questions and demand transparency. We don't need another passive member. I implore you to seriously consider the two applicants I've discussed with you. When considering appointments today, please note that according to the bylaws, the council can exceed its current number of 9 members. Therefore, it is possible to appoint more than 1 or 2 members today. The COA is currently shrouded in secrecy and, in my opinion, wasteful practices. No responsible board or CEO would reject free help for retired experts eager to enhance the Meals on Wheels program. Based on my past experience, there have been hundreds of thousands of dollars in missed opportunities over the past year to reduce cost and increase efficiency. I urge you to stand firm against those pushing other candidates. We need practical, common sense solution to transform the Commission on Aging. If you decide to remove me, and I'd rather stay on from the Advisory Council following the unanimous vote of no confidence in me by the Council, it has been both a pleasure and a challenge to serve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Thorson.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Mary Herringa, and I'm the Uniserv Director for the Washington County Teachers Association. Our office is located at 18047 Oak Ridge Drive in Hagerstown. Last Friday, the Washington County Teachers Association and the Washington County Education Support Professionals, along with the MSEA local affiliates from Garrett, Allegheny, Carroll, and Frederick counties, hosted the first ever Western Maryland Educational Practices Summit. Over 50 educators came together to attend professional development sessions on a variety of topics, including verbal de-escalation, mindfulness, blueprint, certification and licensure, building classroom culture, educational equity, and several more. This was an event we were able to provide to our members for free through grants we were awarded from MSEA and NEA. It was a great learning opportunity for our members, and we're looking forward to making it an annual event. I wanted to take a quick moment to thank some people who helped to make the event a success. Thank you to Brooks House and Applause Catering for partnering with us to provide breakfast and lunch. Thank you to Joni Burkhart and Lindsay Darr at WCPS for working with us so teachers could receive relicensure credit for attending the sessions. And I also wanted to thank the county for the use of the Public Safety Training Center where we were able to hold our summit. Megan Noakes and Kevin Lewis were incredibly helpful with setting up the building, providing tech support, and making sure we had everything we needed. The event would not have been successful without their help. And of course, a big thank you to the teachers, counselors, social workers, and support staff who gave their time, effort, and energy to attend. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Okay. Other citizens' participation? Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Paul A. Ward, Cedar Lawn, I'd like to take this opportunity to speak on the issues of the crime. Thank the council member for being here today to listen to what's going on. As a wheelchair ADA person going downtown regularly, I am for the first time concerned for my safety. As a senior advocate, I am concerned for my fellow seniors, both ADA and more so those who are not ADA, who enjoy downtown, our new stadium, our restaurants, our shopping district, and the other facilities that we like to participate in. We have made great strides to improve downtown, as everyone knows. And with what I have seen personally and have discussed with a variety of individuals, both public and private, once this crime situation really gets out, once our reputation for crime really gets out, you and I know what the effect's going to be economically, personally, and with businesses. You all know more than I the subject. It's been discussed in the news, on the radio, and in private conversations throughout the area. I am looking at it as a concerned citizen of Washington County and Hagerstown. For the first time in 20 years, crime is really going to set us back, taking away our personal freedoms of enjoying living here, shopping here. And if I was still working here. It's a whole village, ladies and gentlemen. It's more than just government. It's government, it's businesses, it's the nonprofits. It's a complex issue. I recognize that, and you all recognize that. Please, we must move forward in order to protect our citizenry here in Hagerstown and Washington County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Other citizens this morning?
Kristen Alshire, 1217 Virginia Avenue, Hagerstown, Maryland. If you'll do me the same pleasure of waiving Robert's Rules of Order and the time constraints that you provided to Mr. Porter and the other gentleman. Mr. sort of reminds me, sort of like the voice inside my head that I don't ever let out. So I'm here this morning because of comments made by Mr. Harvey on Facebook regarding the matters this gentleman in the back just spoke about. And I don't do Facebook politics, I do face-to-face. I don't provide lies about politics on social media. I like to speak honesty and plainness and candor face-to-face with my fellow leadership. And I have to tell you, even this morning, you can hear the notion of the perception, if you will, of viewing citizens of the city of Hagerstown as second-class citizens. Even from your county administrator this morning when they said, oh, we're going to provide county sheriff services for some of the routes in and out of the city, but it won't take away from the services of that department to county residents. That's what was said. I'm here to remind you as a citizen of the city of Hagerstown that pays my county taxes, that 45,000 of us that live in the city are county residents that pay our taxes. I want to speak to this notion, this ridiculous notion, Mr. Harvey, of saying that the city is defunding the police. And I get it, you're a Republican, it's election time, and you want to get Republicans elected to city office. And this notion that you said you've spoken to city leadership in the last 6 months, let alone the last 6 days, about public safety is ridiculous. You haven't been doing that. Instead, what you've been doing is filing frivolous lawsuits over annexation with the city and working behind the scenes to undermine the city's ownership and operation of its utility system. Those are the things you've been doing instead of talking to the city directly, to people like me, about public safety. And you ask Mr. Kiefer and Mr. Barr and Mr. Klein, I'm an easy guy to get hold of. I'm an easy guy to talk to, right? Here's the reality. The city of Hagerstown, just like every other municipality in the state of Maryland, is not required, is not obligated, is not the responsibility of a municipality to provide public safety. Under state statute, that rests with the county and the state. But we do that anyway, and here's how we do it. The city collects roughly $30 million a year in property taxes from city residents, okay? And I heard and I read on your Facebook post that the county's providing a third of its county calls into the city of Hagerstown. City residents that are county residents make up about a third of the county population, so that's about the correct amount of service that should be provided to those fellow county residents. Out of that $30 million that the city collects in city property tax, we spend $15 million on police. 15 million, 50%. We're not required to provide that public safety, but we do it. And you know what the county does in return for that? It gives an offset on that. An offset that you put in place when I was a commissioner in 2009 of roughly 12 cents. So what happens as a city resident is $600 to $1,200 in city taxes that I pay go to pay for city police. The county then gives me back an offset of about $100 to $150 in subsidy, because that's all you provide the city in that tax set-off. And that tax set-off hasn't changed in 15 years. In 15 years, the city's police department budget went from $10 million to $15 million. We've increased our city police budget $5 million, 50% in that 15 years. The tax set-off for that has stayed at the same roughly $3 to $4 million every year for 15 years. We're also not required to provide a fire department. But $10 million more dollars of that $30 million goes to the Hagerstown Fire Department. That's $25 million out of 30 that we collect to basically provide the service that's the county and the state's responsibility to do. That's what we do. And in that effect, we have $5 million to do all of those other things that we're supposed to be doing. And you know very well that our police and our fire have mutual agreements. We go outside of the city just as much as in. So I look at that and say, okay, what should we not be doing? What should we do, as you point out, you want to help. Maybe the first thing we can talk about is the city doesn't provide city police officers as student or as school resource officers to county schools. Boonesboro doesn't, Williamsport doesn't, Hancock doesn't, Smithsburg doesn't. They all have campuses, just like North and South High. Those municipalities aren't providing the school resource officers. That would put our officers back on the streets in patrol. we stopped sending paid Hagerstown Fire Department personnel and apparatus. As a city taxpayer, I'm paying for that. It should be in the city. We stopped sending that outside of the city limits. That would save some of that funding. And this notion that we're not going to the state and helping to lobby those things that we agree the state is doing incorrectly, that is causing greater harm to our community. I don't remember the county being there when Mayor Keller went and begged the state to adjust legislation to stop the dirt bikes and the four-wheelers and things. She got yelled out of the room. So we had to go and we had to invest in the drone program for our police department, which is used more than just in the city. We had to go and invest in that to address that issue. The county wasn't at the table on that. So I read these things, and you point out this letter that's supposedly from Senator Quarterman of these 8 special points, and they're points. They're not solutions, they're just points, right? We don't control the nonprofits. We don't fund them. We don't regulate them. The county and the state and the federal government does. We don't regulate the state's attorney's office, right? We don't have authority over that, or the county courthouse. We don't dictate where nonprofits get to locate and set up and operate and be monitored. We don't do that stuff. But we are absorbing it, and we are addressing it, and we are adjusting taxes, and we are directing those resources to public safety, which is the county and the state's responsibility to do every day. That's what we're doing.
Okay. Anyone else in citizens' participation this morning? Hearing none, before we move on to our special guest in the room, I'm going to personally come out and welcome my friends from MACO. Good morning to you. Thanks for coming. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. It is a privilege and honor to be with you today here in Washington County. For the record, I'm Johnny Olszewski, the Baltimore County Executive and current President of MACO. I know that Commissioner Barr held this responsibility, I believe, back in 2016. But it's a privilege to continue our tour as we visit every county across our state. Washington County represents our eighth stop on the tour, but it's great to be with you today. Just want to say, hopefully we see some, if not all of you, next week at our summer conference. Would love to see you there. And as we're doing this work, really interested to hear from you as much as we're here to share. Here with Michael Sanderson, our Executive Director, who have a few updates about the work that we've been leading this past year in the Maryland Association of Counties. But I'll say this as I come to you as someone leading a large jurisdiction in Central Maryland. What I have been finding in our conversations is that we have so much more in common in terms of the challenges we face than not. And so whether it is the blueprint and some of the requirements there, issues of funding school construction, transparency in school budgeting, highway user funding, funding for community colleges, finding housing solutions, things like solar siting. We're really sort of all on the same team in terms of advocating for our counties across the state. So it's a privilege and honor to be here. I'm going to turn things over to my wingman here, Michael, for a few policy updates on our end. But again, we'd love to answer any questions afterwards, and especially we'd love to hear from you all about the things you're working on and how we can be a partner and really support what's happening here in Washington County.
Thank you all very much this morning. I'm Michael Sanderson, Director of the Maryland Association of Counties. For those who are watching this morning, we're an organization that sort of advocates for and serves and represents the county governments and all the services that we provide to residents across the state. We try and provide education and service for our member counties, and then also act as a voice on their behalf in the legislative and political process on policies that would affect our ability to serve our residents well. I've distributed a packet of information. A lot of this is pulled from sources that are on our website, the Conduit Street blog, and so forth, but meant that mostly as a leave behind for a quick survey of things that we've been focusing on. I want to be brief. I want to be respectful. I know you have a healthy agenda for today, so I'm going to skip through a couple things looking backward, mostly back at this last legislative session and the budget year that's just started, got put to bed in the spring, and then focus for a few minutes on issues that are still live going forward, where I think we still have work to be done. So I'll try and focus that way. If I miss something that's on your mind, happy to have a conversation about any of that sort of stuff. So the front page of our handout is a quick sort of drop of a lot of statistics of our organization's effectiveness in Annapolis, and I like to start there by saying MACO has a hard-earned, well-earned, and very positive reputation in town in Annapolis. We're nonpartisan, we're very practical, and when we come to the table, we get a great deal of deference from legislators because they know we're coming being practical and straightforward. In many cases, the state delegates to county governments a lot of functions that our residents really, really rely on. So our local health departments and environmental enforcement and local planning and zoning and local transportation, the list goes on and on of things that are important to our residents. They're delivered by counties, but sometimes subject to laws and policies that are set at the state level. So we need to have that voice in Annapolis to help guide policy that's going to affect us and our ability to deliver things effectively. Some of it's funding, some of it is overall statewide policy and implementation and that sort of stuff, but we aim to be your voice. And bills that MACO has an opinion on, we move the needle in Annapolis. Bills that we support have a better chance of passing than regular bills. Bills where we oppose or have things that we need to have fixed, our strike rate is very high of either getting those bills defeated or altered, or sometimes counties shouldn't be in the definition of an employer or litigant or that sort of thing. We move the needle in Annapolis, and that's an important part of what we do. I'll speak to a couple of policy issues from this last year, and I want to focus on things that are still relevant going forward. The big picture budget and fiscal circumstance of the state is murky, and I feel like this is maybe, I don't know, I've forgotten how many times I've sat at this table and sort of said variations on this theme, but our current economy is tough to pin down. The last American Jobs Report, including the Maryland component, was weaker than expected. We've seen that in the stock market. But the signs have been mixed. Unemployment, generally speaking, has been really low, especially in Maryland. Usually that's the sign of a really robust and healthy economy, but lots of residents and families and business owners have felt trepidation about where we are making investments and so forth. It's a combination of multiple things. Prices still feeling high after a period of high inflation. Interest rates being high, making borrowing costs tough, affects housing and big purchases and business expansion and so forth. There's just a lot of mixed signs. The state depends very heavily on the economy of the moment for its revenues. Most of its number 1 and 2 sources of revenues by far are income tax and sales tax. And that's basically who's working and earning and who's like going out and buying shoes and restaurant meals and stuff like that. So that's like the economy of today. County governments are a little slower to be affected by things and also slower to pull out of slow times because of the property tax is one of our larger revenue sources, and that's got a little bit of a lag factor. As you know, assessments are phased in over time and other stuff like that that tend to make it more stable. So the state is trying to judge where they're going, and when their fiscal analysts show them their projections, the state budget for the coming year looks okay, but you get another year or two out and they are in serious crisis. Part of that is a function of the state has an education trust fund, which has slot machine and casino revenue that by constitutional amendment was put into a trust fund for educational advancements in advance of the big blueprint plan, this big 10-year, very ambitious and important education plan being rolled out. They basically have money in the sock to pay for their share of the blueprint through this year, FY25, through next year, FY26, and because of some stuff they did this past spring, kind of through FY27. But that's when, in FY28, is when the state needs to pay for their stuff with cash rather than out of a reserve fund. And when that lands in the state general fund, they are way upside down. So whether that means you make adjustments today to recognize you've got a problem a few years out, or whether you limp along for a couple of years and see when you have to deal with it, is kind of a big unknown in town. What does it mean for the state to resolve a couple $billion-dollar problem in a $25 billion budget? It means some combination of you go back to the education plan and say, maybe we can't do all of this on that schedule. We can't do it in 10 years. Or there's some intermediate pieces that we can change the timetable for. Or it means on the spending side elsewhere in the state budget, you find some ways to economize and trim back. And other state agencies, you don't do quite as much as you might have planned to be doing. Or you find the resources to live up to those promises in education and elsewhere through new revenues or modernizing your revenue structure or tax rates or whatever. None of those are easy. None of those are lovely things to be doing in an election year, which is not that far away. So we're at a tough spot in the sort of four-year political cycle. What Annapolis has in mind for this coming year, the third session of a four-year term, is on our minds because we have seen in the past when the state is in a fiscal crunch, reasonably often they look to things where we end up seeing some of the burden land on local governments, cost shifts and other adjustments and so forth. Some of you have been with us for years going back to the year when the state shifted cost of teacher retirement onto county governments rather than that being a state-funded program. That's still embedded into your budget to the tune of probably $500 million today. Highway user revenue, as the president mentioned, was the share of gas taxes and so forth that went back to local governments. We're still at 30 cents on the dollar or thereabouts of where we used to be when the state was honest in its support for local roads and bridges that we maintain. So fiscal stuff lies in the background. I don't have a clear forecast for where they are, but they know they've got a hole in the boat. The question is, do you putty it over or do you actually go after the problem? I'll mention a couple other things that have been meaningful in Annapolis and probably are not completely behind us. The county executive mentioned solar siting. You all are the home of what now is the most cited court case in Annapolis hearing rooms these days, the perennial court case over to what extent has the state basically preempted local governments for using your planning and zoning authority on the location of solar facilities. And the Maryland courts have basically said the large-scale stuff is subject to the rules that were written decades ago for power plants. And a big solar siting on a farm or whatnot is really, in all candor, none of your business. You don't get to zone it. You don't get to have very much control. There's some limited ability to say we want setbacks or we want some buffers or other things like that. But local governments can't go through zoning and just say, no, not here, do it there instead. You can have the Public Service Commission consider your plan and your preferences, but you can't bind them to a local decision. That's what the courts have said. That also is a prevailing sentiment in the General Assembly in Annapolis. So we have a weak hand to play legally and politically on solar siting, but what lies in the background is we are seeing tremendous pressure on some of our most productive farmland in this part, in the Piedmont part of the state, the Eastern Shore, increasingly moving toward the center parts of the state and the more built up areas and so forth. The state has clean energy goals. It's going to require energy sellers in Maryland to find more and more of their power from clean sources, specifically solar. It's got to come from nearby. You can't pipe in solar energy from Nevada or from North Dakota. You lose way too much in transmission. It's got to come from close by. The pressure is going to continue to be on. So we have been really active on this issue. It takes a bunch of our time and energy to not completely lose all of the authority we have, but the pressure is very much against us on these issues. It was live last year and no big bill passed because of complicated and weird reasons. But the year ahead likely starts that fight anew, and I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. So potentially a compromise to be reached on that front, and we're working in that direction, but it's a tough issue that we're all stakeholders in, and our residents are too. I'll mention that the state has had a couple years of implementing, sort of working toward implementing a paid leave law for employers, including county governments as employers. The quick reset on that issue is, at the moment, the state plan is going to work kind of like unemployment insurance, where employers basically pay a premium into a pot, and then the state pays the benefits rather than the employer paying the benefits themselves, unless you want to opt out and run a private plan where you do it yourselves. We think every county is likely to opt out of the state plan and run something privately. We have been working alongside our sister organizations who represent school boards and municipal governments to create a co-op to try and give you one plug-and-play option. The benefits will start in 2 years, basically July 1 of 2026. If you're in the state system, you'll start paying premiums on July 1 of 2025 and pay a year's worth of premiums so that they can have money in the fund to start paying the benefits. We can opt out of that 1 year payment with no benefits by getting a private plan approved by the State Department of Labor and so forth. So we want to give you that easy option, whether you go with that or something else. The landing strip is clear for you to come up with your own solution and not be stuck in the state plan, and we've worked hard on that. I'll mention just one more thing real quickly that I think is probably mostly behind us legislatively. Last year I was before you talking about the implementation bill for adult use cannabis. That was a constitutional amendment. The voters said yes. The following year, the legislature came to town and passed a big implementation bill. I sat before you talking about zoning, and I said we got a two-word explanation in the state implementing law: reasonable zoning. And nobody in Maryland knows or knew what that phrase meant. This year we got like a paragraph and a half of new laws that give more guidance and more comfort for any local limitations on where these facilities can go. You've got the ability to separate them from sensitive facilities like schools or churches and whatnot. You've got some ability to separate them from other dispensary locations. You've got some guidance on this is okay, and this is okay. We will probably have some local zoning laws still get challenged in court, but we're not completely on an island like we were 12 months ago. So that's a quick dance through of just a handful of topics. There's a dozen and a half other ones in the packet, and there are scores of them out there to talk about. If there's something I missed, I'd be delighted to chat with you about it more, but I'll leave it there for now. Thanks for the time.
Questions, comments? Thank you.
Thanks again for the opportunity. Thanks for your service.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You want to start the next one? I'll walk out with it. Okay. You want to start the next item?
Next on the agenda, John's going to briefly step back for a moment and wish our guests goodbye, safe travels. Next is a multi-signature change order for comprehensive health care services. Please introduce yourself in the matter, sir.
Good morning, Major Craig Rowe, Warden of the Washington County Detention Center. Here this morning requesting a motion and approval of a multi-signature change order that changes the purchase order from $2,220,805.21 to $2,316,356.08, which is an increase of $95,550.87. In short, our contract with Prime Care Medical states that we will assist in getting refunds for inmates in excess of $25,000 per fiscal year that is spent on an individual incarcerated person. This is part of Maryland Code Correctional Service Article 9-405. So the Detention Center has to prepay these bills that are submitted. We then submit them to the state for reimbursement. And because of the number of payments we had to make was due to some individuals that cost more than that $25,000, we have to request a little bit more on that purchase order to pay the final bill for FY24 to Prime Care for their services. So we're not here asking for additional money, just approval to change that purchase order. We had excess in the fiscal year '24 budget that covers it. And in addition, I was informed today that the county did receive the $184,241.53 from the state this morning. So the funds are there. We're just asking for approval for that change order on the purchase order so that we can pay that final bill and close out our fiscal.
Commissioner comments or a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? First and second to approve the motion as written and stated. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Please note John had left the room. Any opposed? No. 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, the Washington County Gaming Commission Annual Report. Folks, please come forward and introduce yourselves and any members with you.
Good morning, Mayor, Lieutenant, Gaming Commission. Nicole Phillips, Senior Grant Manager, I'm gonna pass out. And I'm a volunteer.
Thank you. Nicole, the floor is yours.
So as I said, Nicole Phillips, Senior Grant Manager, Office of Grant Management, and Marilee Kearns is joining me. We are here today to present the annual report to the Board of County Commissioners and to announce the Gaming Commission's FY24 funding decisions. In fiscal year '24, the Gaming Commission had available $2,414,285.89 for distribution to local charitable organizations and the Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association. This figure reflects a decrease in revenues of $128,744.45 when compared to the previous fiscal year. In accordance with state statute, 50% of the funding received is allocated to the Washington County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association, and the remaining has been allocated to charitable organizations within Washington County. In May of 2024, the Gaming Commission received 88 funding applications from 76 charitable organizations. The total amount of funding requested from those 88 applications was $2,990,534.92. The applications were reviewed and considered by each commissioner, and after review, group deliberations, and a gaming hearing held in June, the Gaming Commission determined appropriate funding allocations based on the published and approved guidelines for distributions of gaming funds, which is consistent with the state statute governing the distribution of these funds. The press release that I handed out will go live after this presentation. It details further the award allocations and just some more information regarding the amount of organizations that applied. But at this time, I can turn it over to Marilee if you have anything you wanted to say.
I enjoyed working with the Gaming Commission. Washington County is blessed to have as many volunteer and nonprofit organizations that we do have to help fill in the gaps in needs for the county. And, the group works well, and when just because someone didn't get funded, didn't mean their project wasn't worthy or important. It was just, we only had a finite amount of money, so somebody had to get put on the list, unfortunately.
Thank you. Good job. Absolutely. Yeah, we appreciate the hard work that goes into this. I know there's a lot of review, time, and effort, and it means so much to this community to put this kind of funds back into the hands of the nonprofits. So it's very important.
Well, I would like to just publicly thank all of the commissioners. So there was Matt Schnebley, who was the chair of the FY24 Gaming Commission, Mike Hansen, who was the vice chair, of course, Marilee Kearns, Dawn Wintermoyer, Selena Wilkes, and Paul Crampton Jr. So we just thank them for their time. And then additionally, I would like to thank staff who handles the charitable gaming program, We have Laura Ramey, who is the charitable gaming manager, Steve Davis, who is our part-time gaming inspector, and last but not least, Julie Mackroth, who is our senior office associate who provides legal support to this program. So thanks all around.
Again, great job. Thank you for all your hard efforts on this.
Thank you.
So we got, okay. Next item is request for concurrence/approval of logo for Washington County Emergency Communications 911 Center. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, Commissioners. Danielle Weaver, Director of Public Relations and Marketing.
Good morning. Alan Matheny, Director of Emergency Management and Communications.
So we're here today to get approval for a new Washington County Emergency Communications 911 Center logo. The 911 Center was in need of a new logo with them being moved out from under Emergency Services and now being a division of Emergency Management and Communications. So with that, Emergency Management already had a logo, and we needed to complete one for 911 Center. It was requested that the logo include the American flag. That includes the thin yellow line representing the emergency call takers. We wanted a Washington County region map. We wanted to include George Washington and also a call taker's headset. So we did several different variations of the new logo. These are three that we had come up with. And this was the one that was chosen by the division. And we are requesting the approval to start using this and branding it under the new the 911 Center.
Yeah, I like that one the best. Yeah.
And then we also created a division logo that now has the original that we use for all of the different departments.
The logo up here on the left is the one you were talking about, and then the one down on the bottom right would be used too. Is that what you're saying?
So that's currently the Office of Emergency Management's logo.
Right.
So that's been in place for several years now.
That would stay, or?
That would stay. That would remain because they are still two different departments under the division.
Okay.
So we needed to create a logo for the division and then also here the new logo for the 911 Center.
So you're asking us just one of those, or?
To approve this one
Yeah.
for the 911 Center.
Yeah, I thought, yeah, I'm fine with that one.
I like all three, but that was my favorite as well, so.
Okay, consensus, is that what we have?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next item is the Bostetter Property Sewer Service and JSSA Amendment. Good morning, Mark.
I can start. Good morning, Commissioners. Mark and I are here this morning requesting a motion to approve what has been styled the First Amendment to the JSSA to provide sewer service to the Bostetter property. As you'll recall, the county granted an easement, or excuse me, the Bostetter property owners, Bostetter Group, granted an easement across their property in exchange for an option to connect to county sewer. We brought this back before you and as a means or to discuss resolving that issue, providing them the sewer service after the fact that the property had been annexed into the city of Hagerstown. Through discussion with both staff, Jason Dybelbis, and the city of Hagerstown, we came up with this First Amendment. For your review and consideration, it does allow for, well, Mark, I'll let you get into the specifics of sort of what the plan is as more set forth in the amendment.
The actual agreement, the city will be responsible for the infrastructure within the development itself.
And the city will also be responsible for the pump station that will be connecting to our force main. Once it connects to the force main, then it becomes the county's responsibility because we own the force main, and then we will provide the treatment for that flow. One of the requirements is there will be a flow meter installed at the pump station, and then we will bill the city of Hagerstown as a wholesale customer for whatever goes through that meter. And our normal rates will apply that we review every year at budget time.
And Commissioners, I will note that this was reviewed and approved by the mayor and city council on July 23rd of 2024.
Okay. Questions, discussion?
We had already talked about this, correct? Yeah, we did.
Correct.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second on the floor, ready to vote. All in favor by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Mark. Next item is intergovernmental cooperative purchase, 24-0153, line striping of county roads.
Good morning, Brandy Nagelbauer in the Purchasing Department.
Doug Levine, Supervisor Operations, Highway Department.
The recommendation I have for you this morning is the intergovernmental cooperative purchase, INTG 24-0153, line striping for county roads. Recommended motion is to authorize by resolution for the Highway Department to utilize the Howard County, Maryland contract with Alpha Space Controls out of Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, with the intention of striping 1,532,710 linear feet on various county roads for a total amount of $164,000. The Code of Public Laws of Washington County does provide that the Board of County Commissioners may procure goods and services through a contract entered into by another government entity as long as we abide by the same terms and conditions of that contract. There is funding available in the department's operating budget for these services.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second for approval. All in favor by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is patrol budget adjustment.
Good morning, Commissioners. Zane Garrett, Deputy Director, Budget and Finance, here before you with a budget adjustment for patrol. There were 2 vehicles that were totaled earlier this fiscal year, and this adjustment will allow the transfer of those proceeds to the Capital Improvement Fund to help cover the costs for the replacement of those unplanned vehicles.
Motion or discussion?
Just 2 vehicles totaled. We got insurance for that, right? And
Absolutely, yep. So we're moving $46,421 to the Capital Improvement Fund to help cover that replacement. That's all insurance proceeds. And then the remainder of whatever the new vehicles cost just gets picked up with the remaining balance that's in that fund, that project, the VEH 006.
Yep. Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion second. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
4-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item is budget adjustment, portable radio chargers.
Morning, Commissioners. David Hayes, Director of Emergency Service.
Tom Weber, Deputy Director of Wireless Communications.
Commissioner, we're here seeking a motion to approve the purchase of 208 additional Motorola portable radio chargers at a unit cost of $461.23 and a total purchase cost of $95,935.84. We're also asking for a second motion to authorize a budget transfer in amount of $95,600 from CIP reserve funding accounts 498710-30-11540 to the Division of Emergency Services Portable Radio Replacement CIP Fund, and that's account 599999-0
-30-11540, EQP 069. A part of the continued countywide upgrade to the public safety radio system and hardware, additional portable radio chargers are needed to complete the outfitting of fire and EMS units. The purchase will be made utilizing existing Washington County P25 radio system upgrade contract, POR 1640. And simply, the original order for the portable radio chargers does not include a sufficient number of radio chargers to allow placement of a portable radio charger for each radio assigned to each fire and EMS vehicle. So the 208 are the number of chargers that we're actually short once we were able to get through a complete countywide volunteer and fire and rescue inventory. We have concurrences from the Chief Financial Officer and Tom Weber, Deputy Director of Water. And we have a budget adjustment form attached.
Motion to approve what do you want? Two motions or?
Two motions.
Motion to approve the purchase of the radio chargers.
$95,930.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the first item. All in favor by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, 5-0. Okay,
Then I guess motion to approve the transfer of the money.
Second.
okay, motion and second for the transfer of funds. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Next item is Washington County Circuit Court renaming request.
Read behind or ahead?
We're on time. Oh, we're a little early. We're a little early. Do you want to wait for Brett?
He's at limited availability, so I'm fine.
We want to,
Okay.
It's up to you. You want to take a recess?
Well, we don't know where he's at though, right?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, there he is.
We said his name and he appeared.
You're like Beetlejuice.
Hey, he brought company.
Right on time.
good morning, Judge.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us today.
Good morning, Andrew Eshelman, Director of Public Works.
Brett Wilson, Administrative Judge for the Circuit Court of Washington, along with Kristen Grossnickel, our Court Administrator. If any real questions are asked, she has the information.
Thank you for allowing the time for us to speak with you this morning about this request. We're here seeking a motion to rename the Washington County Circuit Courthouse the Andrew F. Wilkinson Washington County Circuit Courthouse, and to authorize the erection of new signage affixed to the building near the Summit Avenue entrance, which is the image that you have up on the screen. I'll also mention I did pass a handout of that same elevation view showing some of the recommendations for how that would appear with the changes that we're proposing relative to the name and some of the signage. But before we go any further, I want to allow some time for the judge to talk about the personal side to this request and where the judges are in terms of making this request to rename the courthouse.
Mr. Eshman, and again, Mr. President, honored commissioners, attorney, county administrator, all here, I do thank you for the opportunity to bring this before you. I'm not going to go too much on the personal side. Obviously, we all lived the tragedy together. Quite frankly, I still have difficulty talking about it, so I'm going to try and stick to the basic facts to discuss this request. In the aftermath of the horrific murder of Judge Andrew F. Wilkinson, obviously there were many calls to recognize, memorialize, and to make sure that the event was never forgotten in Washington County. Judge Wilkinson was even in his short time as a judge, already recognized as a leading judicial scholar and an incredible jurist on the bench in Maryland. The judges have had discussions on and off during the many months since the murder occurred, and a few months ago we decided jointly that we would want to proceed to recognize Andrew Wilkinson now by renaming the current courthouse in his honor, recognizing the very strong efforts that this commission and county government making towards a replacement building at some point in the future, and that perhaps if a renaming is granted now, that whatever is done now could be transferred to any future building if that is also ultimately worked out. In all things, during the time since the murder, I've kept in touch with Ms. Stephanie Wilkinson, Judge Wilkinson's widow, and made sure that she is comfortable with any steps that we take. Of course, Commissioner President Barr, I went down to the signing ceremony for the legislation that was also named in Judge Wilkinson's honor. Again, that legislation moving forward with the approval of Ms. Wilkinson, whose main goal is to ensure, or at least to limit, the possibility of anything like this ever happening again. She joins in this request to rename our current building to recognize her husband now. It is also her fervent request that you consider, if it is done, that that name also be transferred to any future courthouse when such is completed and ready for opening. The judges, as I indicated, came together, and the consensus was that for community, it was important to recognize this now. And the best way to recognize him is by having his name affixed to the courthouse building. I've met with Mr. Eshelman at the courthouse. We talked about some of the ideas the judges had, which are included in the letter that I had sent over earlier, and also what seemed like the most efficient, effective way to go forward that would recognize, so that all could recognize what we have done, but also been not only cost-effective, but also make the most sense based in the space that we had to work with. The drawings that Mr. Eshelman had presented, I think show a very conscientious effort to complete the goals of this project while also making sure that it is something that can be shared by the public as a whole. So for that, and I understand there's a financial outlay that comes with everything. I indicated in my letter that where the court would, or at least I would be glad to see private monies to help offset the cost of any works that are done. I think Andrew, as you knew him as a county attorney and a good private practitioner, always cared about the people's money, as all of us here do. And so if that is ever an issue, it only need to be raised once, and we will make sure that it is done as well. You have been very generous to the court before the tragedy. You've been very generous since the tragedy in effectuating anything that we can figure will help to secure the personnel that work there. I don't want to push that beyond what is reasonable. So with that, I make the request.
Judge, you mentioned, obviously, I mean, I'm great with this idea, but did you mention that to move to the hopefully future new courthouse, would that be included in a motion to try to seal it in there, or would that not be included in a motion?
I would ask that it be sealed in there as a part of this project, yes. Okay. I think, the old courthouse, the 1870, I guess reopened in 1874 courthouse, is on the National Register. It will remain after we move. Perhaps the old administrative part may be taken. Whatever happens, I don't know, if there is a day when we move. And that building will remain, and I think it'd be appropriate to be known as the old Washington County Courthouse once any transfer were to happen. For Drew, his lifelong goal was to become a judge. His grandfather was a judge in Pennsylvania. He wanted to be a judge for the longest time and attained that position. I think for his memory, it'd be important to follow the working courts of Washington County.
Yep. Okay. All right. Judge,
Yes, sir.
I completely concur with your request. I think the funding should I recommend that we approve the funding for this at the same time.
Yeah, I would too.
And I also, make a motion that we approve this as submitted.
With the transition.
With the transition included.
Transfer the
Okay,
name.
and to include the funding for this, okay? And
Approve the funding, to do the naming, and include the transition to the
transition
new
of the
building
naming
when
to the new facility.
built.
Do we need to clarify where the funding's coming from?
I have that mentioned in here, and just full disclosure, if you recall, there was some funds added to the CIP budget to look at the planning and potentially design of the next phase of where the Washington County Circuit Courthouse is. And so that is where we're looking to tap those funds for that. And again, with the idea that if anything is affixed relative to memorializing Andrew Wilkinson, that could be relocated. And so just so you're aware, that's what the
Mr.
funding
Harvey's
source is.
motion is clear. I'll second that.
And funds are included in Project BLD 118. That's where the funding will come from, in the CIP fund.
All right, got a first and a second.
Okay, we ready to vote? All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Unanimous decision.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And
Thanks,
just as
Roy.
a follow-up, so you know what's happening next, we didn't mention the memorial service that will be happening near the one-year anniversary, October 16th. So we are trying our best to meet that schedule. Again, custom signage does take a while. We're working on some other things to bring before you, but we're trying our best to meet that schedule.
Can you get the details of that service to Michelle Prevey so we can get it on the calendar?
We'll send it over.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is a acknowledgement and announcement of Open Meetings Compliance Board, OMCB decision. I'll go ahead and read the discussion. In accordance with Section 3-211 of the General Provisions Article of the Maryland Code, at the next open meeting of the BOCC, after the OMCB has issued its opinion, a member of the public body shall announce the violation and orally summarize the opinion. And with that, I have a written opinion that I'd like to read in detail in its entirety. Open Meeting Compliance Board Decision Summary. In accordance with Section 3-211 of the General Provisions Article of the Maryland Code, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County announces the following. A complaint was filed with the Open Meetings Compliance Board alleging the board violated the Open Meetings Act with respect to a closed session on August the 8th, 2023. The complaint alleged the following. The board failed to comply with the Act's training requirements, was the first bullet. The second bullet was failed to make proper public disclosures before the closed session. Bullet number 3, failed to make proper public disclosure after closed session. And bullet number 4, failed to satisfy the Act's requirements for closed session minutes. The Compliance Board made the following findings. There was no violation of the Act's training requirement. Number 2, the board violated the Act by failing to provide the public sufficient information before entering closed session, in that the board did not include in its written closing statement sufficiently detailed descriptions of all topics of discussion and reason for having those discussions in closed session. Number 3, the board violated the Act with respect to its public disclosure following the closed session, either because it contained an inaccurate closed session summary or because it failed to include details required by 3-104 of the Act. The topic descriptions in the disclosure also failed to satisfy either of those provisions, and the summary fails to explain the purpose of excluding the public. The Compliance Board lacks sufficient information to determine whether the board violated the Act's requirements for closed session minutes. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing none. Where is the, well, I'm missing something here. Hold on, bear with me. I need a statement to go into closed session.
It's a little blue sheet.
Okay. With all that said, I think moving forward, more importantly than just asking for a motion to go into closed session, heretofore, we'll read a written statement. I need a motion to go into closed session for the following reasons and outlined in more detail in the agenda cover sheet. Number one, to discuss confidential personnel matters. Number two, to consider a matter that concerns certain business proposals. And number three, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice. So do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Motion to go into closed session on those terms.
Second.
All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? We're in closed session. We'll take